Good morning. Thanks for joining me on the Meg Ellefson Show. I appreciate you tuning in on this Friday Eve. Very happy to have joining us for this show, Dan Lennington, who is Will's deputy counsel. Will meaning Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. He is sharing some good news. We could always use some good news. Good morning, Dan Lennington. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Meg.
Thank you. I guess we could always start with the good news is Dan Lennington's on, but then we can take it a step further and say, why is that? I mean, you had a great win.
Yes, we had a very, very big win here yesterday. The Wisconsin Court of Appeals ruled that the Evers administration is not allowed to discriminate against college students when giving them scholarships, which I think most people would realize that you should not discriminate against college students when giving out scholarships. But since the 1980s, Wisconsin has had a program that gives out scholarships to college students up to $2,500 based on financial need. But there is an exception to that. You have to be Black, American Indian, Hispanic, or a person from Laos, Vietnam, or Cambodia. And if you're not one of those people, if you're not from those countries, or you're not that ethnicity, or you're not that race, you are excluded from eligibility for these scholarships that are worth up to $2,500 and good at any UW campus, good at any university technical college in Wisconsin, paid for by the taxpayers. $2,500 is not a lot, but when you're a college student and you're putting together a financial aid package and you're working hard, $2,500 does help quite a bit for a lot of students. And the Evers administration was excluding anybody who's not on that list of races. So, for example, of course, if you're white, you can't get the scholarship. But if your parents are from China or Japan or from India or Afghanistan or Pakistan or anywhere in the Middle East or anywhere in North Africa or any country in Central or South America that is not a Spanish-speaking country, and there's 6 or 7 of those, like Brazil, for example, or Belize or Guyana, that you're excluded because of where you're from or where your ancestors are from. And we brought this case back in 2021 against the Evers administration, which this was the very first equality lawsuit that we filed here at Will. And we have been waiting for a decision since then, and it did help that the U.S. Supreme Court declared that race discrimination in education is always unconstitutional. But yesterday, the Court of Appeals in the state of Wisconsin did declare that this scholarship program is unconstitutional, and it demeans people's individual dignity by treating their race as a negative. The court said that if you're white or Chinese or Indian or from Brazil, that somehow your ethnicity or your national origin is a negative towards you, and that is unconstitutional. The Constitution prohibits discrimination on the basis of race or national origin. So this is really good news to prohibit the Evers administration from doing this, and hopefully it signals an end to DEI and all the other sorts of discriminatory philosophies that are floating around in our state government and our K-12 schools, too.
All right, Dan, forgive me for being cynical, but I know that Will has had to go after Milwaukee after a judge ruled that, I'm trying to remember the name of the student resource officers, school resource officers.
Yeah.
And they had to further say, no, we mean it. The judge had to say that. Are you confident that the Evers administration isn't going to finagle around this?
Well, Just for an update on the SRO lawsuit, my colleagues are actually walking over. Right, they're leaving right now. I'm at the Will offices. They're walking right now to the Milwaukee County Courthouse, and they're asking Judge Borowski in Milwaukee to hold the school district in contempt of court and to pay us all of our attorney's fees and costs. And we hopefully that happens sometime in the next 2 hours here. So,
all right,
because they are refusing to still put the cops in the schools that the state legislature ordered them to do. So yeah, there is resistance. That is not something to discount. That we're seeing resistance at the federal level against some of what President Trump is doing. I can see that there will be resistance at the state level, but this is a court order that effectively that actually does shut down this scholarship program completely and orders that it cannot actually exist anymore. This was the idea that the scholarship program was going to be shut down is actually the fault of Attorney General Josh Kaul and his attorneys, because we had suggested to them, and we would have resolved the case on this point, is that the scholarship that we were arguing about could have just been turned into a scholarship for low-income students, which we totally support. Students that have need for scholarships should get them. And Josh Kaul and the Evers administration, they rejected that completely. They told the court, they said, you can't rule in favor of Will and their clients unless you shut down the whole program whatsoever. So they have now made the situation where the scholarship program cannot go forward, and they're going to have to decide whether to appeal the case to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And so, we do have a very big election coming up on April 1st, and that might be a factor in their decision about whether to take this up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court or not.
Oh gosh. Well, I'm glad you brought it up. I don't know. I know that you are a C4, C3, so
yeah, C3.
C3. Okay, so I mean, I'll just take the opportunity to remind our listeners again this morning about this upcoming April 1st election and how critical it is that every single person whom you know and don't know get out and vote for Brad Schimmel. Okay, so going back to, I don't even think it's cynical as much as it is just based on observation, how the left does not appear to care about whether or not a judge orders them to do something or orders them not to do something. And so what's I guess you did cite the Supreme Court, but what's the recourse? If, I guess it's another contempt of court kind of order.
Well, these scholarships are awarded at a certain time of year. I think it would be really, unless they do appeal to the Supreme Court, I think it would be very unlikely that they try to resist this order, because there will be a judgment from a judge ordering them not to do this. And I have not seen the Evers administration themselves or Josh Kaul's attorneys take a contempt of court, refuse to abide by a court order. So I think that would be very unlikely. Now, are they going to continue to do other stuff? Will they try to replicate this scholarship program in some other ways? That is entirely possible. One thing that is going on right now at the University of Wisconsin at Madison is that they also have race-based scholarships. They have, according to our count, 60 race-based scholarships, and most of those are worth more than $2,500. So they have got a huge number of scholarships for students who are certain racial groups. We sent a public records request asking them for a list of all the scholarships that they offer at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and what the eligibility requirements were. And it took them, I think, 8 or 9 months to get us the records. But when we finally got them, they gave us a spreadsheet. And this tells you what type of people we're dealing with here. they have they send us a list of thousands of scholarships, and then and that's one column in the spreadsheet. And then there's another column that says eligibility requirements. And so I open up the spreadsheet. I said, great, I'm gonna go find the ones that have racial eligibility requirements. And I couldn't find any because all I kept seeing was this code. It said ethnicity must be URSOC, URSOC. And I kept seeing this. I said, well, I know what ethnicity is, kind of like your race or your cultural background is your ethnicity. But what is URSOC? And I kept seeing this over and over and over. You want this scholarship for engineering. You want this one for nursing. You want this. You must be an URSOC. And I had to Google it and finally figured out that URSOC is a code word that University of Wisconsin-Madison invented that means underrepresented student of color.
I knew it. I knew they were trying to pull a fast one.
Which, and by the way, they have gotten rid of DEI at University of Wisconsin. They call it inclusive excellence, Meg. Inclusive excellence is the new DEI
of course
code
it
word.
is.
So these people, these woke bureaucrats, they just switch the names of things on you. So yes, there is. So yes, you have to keep on them. That's when you read books about 1984, Brave New World. What does a totalitarian regime always do? Authoritarians, they always start to tinker with the language. Animal Farm, these books of fiction are not really fiction because the liberals and the progressives, when they don't get their way, the first thing they do is they try to change the language. They try to tell you that man is not a man and woman is not a woman. They tell you that black is not black is URSOC. And so they just keep changing the names of things. And so, yeah, that is something to always be on the lookout for. As far as evading our constitutional requirements of colorblindness.
The path of least resistance. I just relied upon artificial intelligence I typed in University of Wisconsin race-based scholarships, and AI came up with the UW system is currently reviewing and altering race-based scholarships in response to legal challenges and Supreme Court rulings. I don't know if they're telling that's what the algorithm that UW has provided. But as of the latest updates, the system is removing race as a factor in over 160 scholarships, grants, fellowship, study abroad programs, and hiring programs. What's so frustrating, Dan, is that it took getting Donald Trump elected to actually even have a conversation or bring it to the forefront. I mean, and of course, organizations like yours. But it's really frustrating that, all of a sudden, they're willing to comply with the law. And I mean, they're willing to acknowledge it. And if they're going along with it, does that mean that they are acknowledging that these programs and scholarships, et cetera, were racist all along?
Yes, I would give a little more credit, though, in this circumstance, to the Wisconsin legislature and Speaker Voss.
Sure.
If people remember, there was a big dust-up between the legislature and the UW system and UW-Madison. I think it was 2023, December of 2023.
Voss played hardball.
Voss played very hard with the UW system, and they were squealing over there because he was withholding raises for the employees and withholding money for a new engineering building. And there was a lot of money that had a spigot that had been turned off by Speaker Voss.
He started Doge before Doge was started.
Yes, and in exchange for turning the spigot back on, they agreed to get rid of a bunch of DEI positions, and the UW system promised to get rid of the race-based scholarships, which they did, but UW-Madison did not. live up to their end of the bargain, which is what we just discovered, and we filed a complaint with the U.S. Department of Education and the Trump administration, telling them to investigate the UW-Madison now. We have that investigation, we hope, is going to be started very soon. And that if you think that Speaker Voss has tools at his disposal, which he does, the biggest stick is the federal government, which can cut off funding to the University of Wisconsin at Madison if they do refuse to abide by federal law. And so I believe that the Secretary of Education and the attorneys at the U.S. Department of Justice are going to play hardball with some universities here in the spring very quickly. And they're going to make an example out of some universities. And we think that UW-Madison is probably on that list of universities that will lose federal funding if they do not stop discriminating based on race, which they are still doing.
So get a load of this. This is from the Milwaukee Journal. Headline, Uncertainty Reigns on UW Campuses in Trump's Second Term. Ooh, that sounds scary. Then they just summarized by saying, from a wide-ranging funding freeze to cutting billions in research spending, ooh, hysteria, the dizzying pace of the Trump administration's executive actions and orders is reminiscent of the early days of COVID for campus leaders. So they're comparing Trump's reforms to the shamdemic. Surprise.
Yeah, it's, I don't think the reporters would ever ask the question, but, the curious reader may say, well, why should they be at risk of losing federal funding? It's because they're violating the law, and they've been getting away with it for decades. They've been discriminating against students. They've been hiring people based on race. They've been giving out benefits to people from certain countries but not other countries. The University of Wisconsin is a massive, multi-billion-dollar system that runs every year, with foundations and outside groups that are worth a lot more money than that too. This is no shrinking violet of a institution, and for them to be wailing that they can't anymore do research because if they do the research the way they want to do it, which is to say that they have to have a racial balance on their research teams, which is what they do, that they're going to get penalized for it. Well, maybe they should just stop discriminating.
Yeah. Hey. Voila. Right? It's maddening, but I'm not surprised that that's the reporting you're going to see in the Milwaukee Journal, because it's agenda driven, and I think they write the headline to manipulate the reader. Sometimes even I don't read past the headline, but I scoff ordinarily at them. But well, Dan Lennington, thanks for the great work. Thanks for the update on this, and look forward to having more conversations of victories. This is the golden age of America. Let's seize the day, right?
Definitely. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thanks. Have a great day.